I'm going to switch here to a little bit different topic, and that is the topic of social debt. Where I'm going with this is you, as we have already discussed, have interacted with a diverse range of individuals from billionaires to even professional athletes. And regarding athletes, we often hear about their financial ups and downs, especially professional athletes, rapidly earning and losing millions. How does this phenomenon relate to the concept of social debt, and what can we learn from this?
So this is maybe 3 years ago or so. I did this consulting session with a group of NBA rookies. And the purpose was, it was everybody knows the path of a lot of professional athletes where a lot of them grew up in inner city poverty and then they get signed as a professional athlete. They make millions of dollars. Their career is 3 or 4 years. And then once they got to get cut and they're not making money anymore, they're bankrupt. It's such a common path for a lot of these athletes. And one of the NBA players, I think he was 19. He was a young kid. He said something that I thought was so profound. He's like, when you grew up in poverty, and then all of a sudden when you're 19, you're making $10 million a year, that is not your money. That is mom's money, dad's money, cousin's money, grandma's money, neighbor's money, friend's money. You can't just tell all your friends who are living back in deep poverty, best of luck to you, I got my money. And he said a lot of the reason that athletes go bankrupt, it's not because they bought themselves a mansion. It's because they bought their fifth cousin a modest house and felt that they were obligated to do to help them out. And so that, to me, I phrased it as this concept of social debt. And social debt can come in many forms. It's the pressures that society pushes on you to spend your money in a certain way. And for a lot of people, it's not necessarily very rich people who are buying their fifth cousin a house, but for a lot of people, it's the expectations that society pushes on you towards, if you are this kind of person in this profession, you need to dress this way and drive this car and live in this house. And for a lot of people, those pressures, it's a legitimate form of debt, because if you get a raise or a big bonus, but then you have these social pressures to spend it all, to live a certain way, that is very much a debt that needs to be repaid before you can get any kind of benefit from the money that you have. And so I think we see this everywhere. The biggest form of social debt is probably rising expectations. And everyone talks about price inflation, the price of goods and services going up. I think a much more dangerous form of inflation is expectations inflation, where your definition of what a good life is goes way up over time, over the course of your life. I think this is a lot of the case of modern history in the West, particularly, where since the 1950s, the huge majority of Americans have gotten much, much richer, higher incomes adjusted for inflation, way higher net worths, longer life expectancies. Virtually everything has gotten better, but there's not a lot of evidence that we're happier for it. And I think a lot of the reason is because the expectations of what a good life is has gone from an 800 square foot house with one car, going camping for your vacation, wearing hand-me-down clothes. That used to be the expectation of a good life. Whereas today, for a lot of people at least, it's a 3,000 square foot house with a 3-car garage and 2 overseas vacations. And keep on going down that list. I think that's a big reason why people, even though they are better off, they don't feel like they are, because their expectations have inflated along with progress over time. So I think that too is a form of social debt. And the thing that's hard about social debt is that it's hard to measure, hard to quantify. So if you're talking about real debt, like your mortgage, you can quantify that. You can say, my mortgage is $105,000, whatever it is, you can quantify it. How do you quantify your social debt? How do you quantify your rising expectations over time? Very hard to do it. So for a lot of people, they just pretend that they don't exist. And even though they are much more prosperous than they used to be, they get caught in this trap of pessimism of, oh, the world is broken. The world is not what it used to be because I don't feel like I'm actually better off.